Cheers. Hi. So my name's Phil, and I work with Monica at the Ban Ki-moon Center. And I have firstly, thank you to all panelists for your contributions, and I've taken a lot of notes and learnings. But my question is directed specifically at Sinead. And basically, what's already been acknowledged multiple times in this room today is that the topic of sustainable development, by definition, has to be inclusive, leaving no one behind. And the thought or a fear that I have in terms of the rapid development of AI is that we're confronted with this incredibly powerful, fairly new force and a sort of untamed beast that in the hands of certain people has this potential of bringing about incredible, wielding incredible power. Yet at the same time, and you mentioned this in your remarks as well, there's still the digital divide, energy poverty that is very real as well. So even access to electricity is not something everybody has. So I'm wondering, how can we work on ensuring that the potential benefits of AI are reaped by us all, rather than moving towards a sort of technological imperialism where this power and might is concentrated in the hands of a few powerful tech companies at the expense of young people at large?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's an important one. And what you're describing is the dual-use dilemma. So where technologies, on the one hand, can be used for transformative potential, and on the other hand, that same technology can be wielded in the wrong hands and create great destruction. And what you also mentioned, the divide. So general-purpose technologies, they're like electricity, the internet. And what we've seen with them is that these divides, when people don't get access to them, that accumulates over time. So who doesn't have access to electricity probably doesn't have access to the internet, and then AI on top of that. But what's unique about technology is that we have to remember it doesn't happen in a silo. So we have AI coming online, but we also have technology in the form of renewable energy, so things like solar. And that's why advancing renewables is absolutely vital, because it decentralizes power, it decentralizes energy. And without energy, we see that if you're an energy-poor country, it is hard for you to reach to economic new heights. But with solar, and we're seeing this really clearly in Pakistan, where people have essentially just kind of bypassed the government and not enough access to the grid, and put solar on their own homes and have generated power that way. What's also happening with artificial intelligence, and you might have seen with kind of the DeepSeek revolution that jumped on board a few months ago and kind of changed the course of how AI is evolving, that idea that it's going to cost trillions of dollars to build these hyper data centers and leverage AI that way isn't necessarily true. AI is advancing and costs are coming down rapidly, and that is the story of technology. It's a story of things getting cheaper. So when you look at the intersection of renewables and AI getting cheaper, it does have the potential to be in the hands of absolutely everyone, and in a way that the internet historically hasn't been. The internet actually requires more infrastructure in some ways. With AI, you can access it through a smartphone. And democratization of this technology is absolutely vital, because to keep that power in check, we need to understand it, we need to be able to build on it, and we need to be able to push back against the forces that we don't think it's in the best hands of. And that's why I encourage everyone to lean into the future, lean into artificial intelligence, because the more you understand a technology, the more you can shape it. And finally, even if you have no tech skills, that does not disqualify you from conversations about shaping AI, because the biggest problems with AI are actually fundamentally social. It's about equity, it's about historical and power imbalances, it's about fairness. That your lived experience qualifies you to be in those conversations. So that's how I would answer that question.
Hello, everyone. My name is Antonio Diaz from SESN Youth, and my question goes to Elon. I really like what you mentioned about normalizing change makers and empowering youth and children. So my question for you is, what are some of the key learnings, best practices that you have had from your experience on how schools can achieve this and how they can create these change makers and normalize this culture? Thank you.
Thanks, Antonio. So something I briefly mentioned that I can maybe talk a little bit more to that question is also the question of what is the best way for governments and ministries of education to actually bring in ESD and normalize change making that is meaningful and systemic. And we heard it a lot actually in the opening session. So essentially, we need to include the people who need to be included at the decision-making table. We need to include young people. We need to include youth because young people know what their needs are. And second, we really need to involve teachers in the designing of these ESD systems and sort of change-maker education systems because it's teachers who know what are the best science pedagogies, things like project-based, interdisciplinary, student-centered, outcomes-based education. Like these are the things that are central to the best form of ESD and change-making, but also just create the most impact on learning and education. And as a result, I think we can kind of see the ripple effect of when we educate kids properly, meaningfully, impactfully, it does not stop, the impact does not stop at the student, right? The impact ripples out into the community, which is the beautiful thing about ESD and the beautiful thing about developing these next generations of change makers. It's the reminder that academics and service learning are not mutually exclusive. Education, academics, and values formation are not mutually exclusive. These things need to be brought together. They are beautiful together, and we've seen what it looks like. We know that it's possible, and we really need to leverage the same mentality that we're giving students. So now that we have sort of had a few years of proof of concept and have seen that this program works, we've seen that we can't just expect kids to go to school just to get a job and to make money. And I think I heard it earlier where it's not like school is not just for getting for work and then just retiring after. Right? There's so much more to education than just jobs. Education needs to prepare us for work, yes, but also for being a good citizen, for life. And what ESD reminds us is we can't have peace in this world without peace education. ESD reminds us that we can't have strong democracies without human rights education. We can't have climate action if we don't have climate education. We can't have gender equality without gender transformative education. And this is all encaptured by ESD. And that's why I wholeheartedly, so passionately believe in it. And that's why, again, I call the people in this room, the people who are watching this live stream, or anyone in the world who's doing good, to actually find your stake in education. I think everyone here can be a teacher. You don't have to be in the classroom every day, but I feel like if my students turned out like the people in this room, I would be proud. And that's what I hope to get out of transforming education with all of you. Thanks, Antonio.
Hi, this is Zan from the UK. I had a question maybe for all of the panelists. I love the Global Schools program, which I've known for a long time, and really exciting hearing about these other similar initiatives. But my thought when I see these programs is actually we need programs like this not really only being done sort of case by case by NGOs, but actually in every single classroom in the world. And I guess my question to you is, from your experience, what advocacy or other efforts are needed to get governments to actually start integrating this style of education into schools much more broadly? Would love if you have any thoughts on that.
try. It's not that I have the alpha and the omega answer to this one, but I do know that there are some countries that are doing really well on this task to integrate ESD, global citizenship education, into their classrooms. One of them that Jeffrey highlighted for years and years was Greece. There was a young educational minister at that time who came up and said, actually, my country is in dire need of certain capacity skills that are just not there. We don't have the UX designers, and it wasn't all about technology, it was also about soft skills. And she created, within the short term of her first couple of years, a whole system of, I call it container schools, but that's my term for it. So you have to imagine that even on the school campus, some of them had specific classrooms that would teach the skills that are needed for the jobs of the future. And that became quite not only popular with the families, of course, with the students, but also with other European countries who said, oh my God, Greece is tapping into something here that we should actually also copy-paste. And there are some European countries that are doing better, others are doing worse. My lesson learned is, and I wish Sam Loney was here because he has done studies in several countries of how they integrated SDG 4.7, particularly into their curricula. And some are quite innovative. I know he has done studies in Costa Rica, in Turkey, I think to believe Morocco was one of them. The formal sector often lags behind, and until our schools will be there, and kudos to you, Elon, that you managed to do it within a school. Often it's the informal sector that is more flexible to do it. But indeed, Sam, if you're cracking the nut of how to get it into all classes and into all schools worldwide, count me on your team, because it's what I want to see as well, that all kids have the chance to be agents of change, the change that they want to see in the world. Let's work together on it.
Monica and others in the room also should know about the important efforts in New York of another person on our team. I'm calling on Dr. Radhika Iyengar and her important work, her seminal work in the primary and secondary schools, and even looking at the preschools prior to that, and how all of these SDGs and the important information can be disseminated in a meaningful way to scale at the level of little children. She has already successfully been accepted completely into the New Jersey schools curriculum, and perhaps more since I last checked in with Dr. Radhika. She really should give a presentation about her work, because it was on the vanguard for sure, and is helping us go forward with our youngest human beings, whom I think may be the most important to get this information out on a regular daily basis so that the children are living this into the next generation. Some of us had to come to this information later. Certainly I did. I'm 74 years old almost, and I've only been working on this information for 20 years. But some of you came a little bit later too, because you never heard about these things when you were 10 or 11 or 12. Not much anyway. It certainly wasn't taught in your schools. So I think it's terribly important to focus more, as Elon was saying, to focus on the earlier grades and see what can be taught at a level where children can actually participate in it and get results that pleases them, so that they really understand this on a feelings level, not just in the academe and hearing or seeing a lecture. They need to feel results for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Betsy, and thank you, Antonio, Dan, and Philip, for your questions. As we wrap up, I want to do one quick lightning round to all of the panelists. So sorry for putting you on the spot. This wasn't included in your speaker briefing, but this keeps it interesting, right? In one sentence or less, what is the most essential skill or mindset, aside from hope? We all have that here. What do you think today's learners need to drive sustainable development in 2025? I'm going to put you on the spot, Monica, first, sorry.
Sorry. Learners need great teachers such as Elin and others, and they need the trust that they can shape the future no matter how young they are.
I would say the essential skill would be learning itself, learning how to learn. Do you know how you learn? Do you learn well? Do you learn quickly? Because that means the room that you're in is irrelevant. The strength of the teacher is irrelevant. If you know how to learn, you will be unstoppable, regardless of the way technology and the world around you evolves.
I'll echo actually what Dr. Parker was mentioning, and that is emphasizing experiencing life as part of school, because we really need, as an education system, to ensure that school is a place where learners learn what they live and live what they learn.
I'm sorry, Kayla, I'm going to say more than one sentence because I wanted to actually respond to Zan's question. I think my answer to your first question is, I think what learners need is hope, first of all, because we are at a point where he's asking a question like, why don't we just go directly to the governments? I mean, because they're the ones who've got the power to put this in every classroom. Why should we do it, in minuscule kind of way? So if we have hope, we are able to then do, without, with the little resources that we have, we are still able to make do, we're still able to, and we don't wait for the powers that may be. So I think that's what's really, really important. Thank you for that question, and it pops up like all the time. Why should we do this by ourselves? We don't have to do this by ourselves, but we actually do. I gave an example of one teacher who made a research and then presented it on the national platform. So we capacitate teachers in as much as they're meant to capacitate students. We capacitate teachers so that they're able to go to these platforms and they are able to articulate themselves and they're able to advocate for ESD by themselves. And so if a teacher like Bosra from Turkey is able to then present her research, in a place where there's government officials, there are chances that what she says can be heard. So it's not an immediate result, but it takes time and we have to put in the work. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I believe what learners need the most is access. They can't learn anything if they don't have the access. So how do we explore making all of this accessible to them in a way which is not blocked and which is easy for a child to find? How do we do that? Because none of this knowledge can proceed without the access to it.